Guys, I need to vent, and I don't really have a place to say this out loud. If you've ever stayed in something too long just because the alternative felt scarier, maybe this'll make sense. I'm 35. I'm an architect, or at least that's what my degree and my business cards say. But more often than not, I feel like a glorified draftsman, just pushing paper and getting told my ideas are cute before the real decisions happen in someone else's office. My wife, Laura, is in marketing, and she lives for that pressure cooker energy. I used to admire it. Now I just brace for impact. Every morning is the same script. I make coffee, black for her, two sugars for me. I offer to make breakfast, and she says, "Don't bother. That cereal you bought tastes like wood chips." On good days, she says it with a smirk. On bad days, she doesn't look up from her phone. I've always been a project guy. I like fixing things with my hands, woodworking, restoring old radios, playing jazz records while I tinker. A couple months ago, I started building a bookshelf for our bedroom. Nothing fancy, just oak and walnut strips I'd been saving. I thought maybe if she saw I was trying to make our home better, she'd see me differently. When I showed her the half-finished frame, she barely glanced up from her laptop. "We could have just ordered one from West Elm. You know, something that doesn't look like it came from your uncle's garage sale." Mom, that one stung more than I wanted to admit. That same night, I texted Deborah. Deborah's an old friend, like elementary school old. We reconnected a couple years ago when she and her husband moved back to our town. We didn't plan to stay in touch, but somehow we did. We started meeting for the occasional lunch, then swapping memes, sending each other recipes we'd never actually try. She's married to Tom, a finance guy who always seems to be in a critical pitch meeting or wrapping up QQ4 reports even on Sundays. Anyway, I sent her a photo of the bookshelf. No caption. Just needed someone to see it. She replied in less than a minute. "Harry, that's gorgeous. Did you sand those edges by hand?" I don't know why that got to me. Maybe because she asked. Maybe because she noticed. The next day, she showed up at my office with soup, homemade chicken and rice. "You sounded off last night," she said. "Figured this might help." We sat in the break room while I ate straight from the thermos. I tried to make a joke about the bookshelf again, but she cut me off. "You're more than what she says you are." It was quiet for a beat. I stared at my spoon, pretending to focus on a grain of rice. Then she added, "And that shelf, West Elm wishes they had your eye for balance." God, the way I wanted to believe her. But guilt has claws. I kept thinking, Laura's not wrong exactly. I don't earn as much as she does. I don't network. I don't chase titles. Maybe I am the guy with half-finished hobbies and too many dreams in the garage. Still, something shifted after that. That night, I noticed Laura had canceled my plans with Josh and Ryan. We were supposed to catch the game. I walked into the living room, and she was texting. "Hey, I thought I told you I had plans tonight." She didn't even look up. "I told them you weren't coming." "You've been swamped, right? No point pretending you're still 20. You're? I stared at her. "You told them?" "It's not a big deal," she said, finally looking up. "You'd rather stay in and mess with that bookshelf anyway." I went into the garage and just sat there for a while. The half-assembled shelf leaned against the wall like it knew something I didn't. Later, I found myself typing out a text to Deborah. "Thanks for not making me feel invisible today." She replied a few minutes later. "You've never been invisible, Harry. You're just surrounded by the wrong mirrors." It didn't hit me all at once. It crept in slowly, like light under a door. I realized that I looked forward to her messages more than I should, that I checked my phone more often than usual, that her approval felt like oxygen. But I told myself it wasn't like that. She's just kind, thoughtful, the kind of person who remembers your favorite soup and notices a dovetail joint. Besides, she's married. And so am I. Still, something else happened this week. Deborah texted me a question out of nowhere, asked if hotel receipts ever showed up wrong on corporate expense reports. I said, sure, sometimes, but asked why. She didn't answer for an hour. Then, Found one in Tom's coat. 2 nights ago, he told me he was in the office. I wanted to say so many things. That's shady. You deserve better. Want to come over and talk? But all I said was, I'm here. If you need anything. Shh. No, Tom's like. And I meant it. Even if I shouldn't. Back again. I didn't expect so many people to DM me after my last post. Thank you to the strangers who said I wasn't crazy or weak or wrong for feeling how I feel. It's weird how anonymous kindness hits harder than the kind I've begged for in real life. I guess I owe you the next chapter. So, it got worse. The bookshelf. I finally finished it. Took me 3 weekends. I stained it walnut and lined the back with this vintage floral wallpaper I found online. It felt good, like I had carved a little dignity out of something. Laura walked past it 3 times without saying a word. When I finally asked, well, what do you think? She raised an eyebrow and said, it looks handmade. Then she walked off. That was the whole review. But the worst wasn't the bookshelf. It was my pitch deck for a sustainable housing project. I'd been working on it for weeks, hoping to get buy-in from our firm's new green development division. It wasn't just another blueprint. This was mine. I saved the final version on a shared desktop. That morning, I kissed Laura goodbye and reminded her, please don't touch my work folder. My deck's in there. She barely nodded, scrolling through some fashion influencer's reel. When I got to work, the file was gone. Not renamed. Deleted. I called her. Did you open anything in my folder? Silence. Then, oh, yeah. I thought it was one of my old decks and cleared it to make room for my media kit. Sure. I asked if she checked the name before deleting it. She got defensive. Well, if it was that important, why didn't you back it up? That sentence still rings in my ears. Not, I'm sorry. Not, let's try to recover it. Just blame. I worked through lunch and tried to piece it together from scratch. When I finally got home around 9 p.m., she was already halfway through a bottle of wine and watching reality TV with the captions on. Long day? She asked, not looking at me. Yeah. You're grumpy. Go sand a plank or something. I almost said something cruel back. I didn't. I just went to the garage and stared at my tools for an hour. The next day, I got a text from Deborah. Pottery class this weekend. There's a 2-for-1 coupon. You in? I hesitated. Part of me thought, what am I doing? I'm married. She's married. But the other part, tired, deflated, and desperate for something light, typed, count me in. It was a tiny studio near the river, all exposed brick and cheerful clutter. The instructor, a woman named Clara, wore overalls and smelled like cinnamon. Deborah waved at me with clay-covered hands and said, hope you're ready to fail in public. Turns out, I'm awful at pottery. My mug collapsed sideways like a toddler's drawing of a volcano. Deborah's wasn't much better. She kept giggling, nudging me with her elbow every time her bowl warped. I think I made a haunted ashtray, I said. She laughed so hard she snorted. You wish it looked that good. It was the most fun I'd had in months. After class, we grabbed coffee nearby. It was chilly, so she let me borrow her extra scarf, purple wool with a snagged corner. We sat on a bench, sipping foam off the tops of our cups like kids. Then, out of nowhere, she grew quiet. Harry? She started, staring at her hands. I shouldn't be here. I knew what she meant, but I played dumb. At the cafe? With you? Her voice dropped. I love talking to you. I love this, whatever this is. But I have to work on my marriage. Tom and I, we're trying. I didn't push. I just nodded. Yeah, of course. But something inside me dimmed. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the day in my head, the clay on her cheek, the way her eyes crinkled when I made a joke, the scarf that still smelled like cinnamon. I wondered if I was just a mirror for her loneliness, too. If we were both clinging to the first kind voice we'd heard in months. A week passed. Deborah didn't text. I didn't either. Then I saw something that made my stomach turn. I was driving home late, took a different route to avoid traffic, and passed by the Edison, an upscale bar downtown. And there it was, Tom's silver Audi, parked across the street. Engine off. It was 10:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. That night, Deborah finally texted me. Tom says I'm being paranoid again, that I'm inventing problems because I'm bored. I found another unfamiliar receipt, this time from the Edison. He says it was a client dinner. Now the ragens. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her he was lying, that she deserved better, that her gut wasn't wrong. But all I typed was, "You're not paranoid, you're paying attention." She didn't reply for a long time. When she finally did, it was just, "Thank you for saying that. I'm still here, still married, still unsure of where this is heading." But last night, I lay in bed beside a woman who rolled her eyes when I said goodnight. And I thought about Deborah's chipped nail polish and her haunted ashtray mug, and how I felt when she looked at me like I was still worth something. And I wondered, for the first time in a long time, what if I deserve someone who wants to be here? Back again, thanks to those who asked for an update. I wasn't sure I'd post more, but writing this out helps me make sense of what's happening, even if I hate how some of it sounds when I see it in black and white. This is the part where things started slipping out of my control. Or maybe they'd been slipping for a long time and I was just finally paying attention. It started with Laura finding my texts to Deborah. Nothing romantic, nothing explicit, but personal, supportive, familiar in a way married people probably shouldn't be with someone else's spouse. She was looking through my phone under the pretense of checking our shared calendar. I'd left it charging on the kitchen counter. I was sanding a chair leg in the garage when she stormed in and slammed the phone down on my workbench. "You're cheating." Just like that. I stood up too fast, heart pounding. "What?" "Don't play dumb, Harry. All these little messages, all your secret pottery dates and midnight pep talks. You think I wouldn't notice?" "They're not secret. I told you about the class. And we're just friends." Or, she scoffed. "You're pathetic." Then she leaned in, eyes narrowed. "Do you like that she makes you feel important? You think she's your escape hatch? Please, you're too weak to even leave." I didn't respond. Not right away. Because she wasn't entirely wrong. I did like feeling important. I did like being seen. And no, I hadn't cheated. But emotionally. Maybe I'd crossed a line I hadn't drawn clearly enough. That night, she gave me the silent treatment. I slept on the couch. Not because she told me to, but because I couldn't bear to hear her breathing in the next room. For the next few days, she iced me out completely. No conversation. No eye contact. Just slammed drawers, passive-aggressive sighs, and meals she cooked for herself and plated like I didn't exist. On Wednesday, I got home late from work, deliberately. She was on the phone in the bedroom, door half closed. I wouldn't normally eavesdrop, but the bitterness in her voice pulled me toward it like a magnet. She laughed. "Oh, of course he hasn't left. He'll drag this out like everything else. Just play along. He'll cave eventually." Uh, Her voice was light, almost amused. I don't know who she was talking to. I don't think it matters. What mattered was the realization she wanted me to break first, to leave. So she wouldn't have to be the one holding the blame. I sat on the edge of the bed after she left for work the next morning. I looked at the empty wall where I'd planned to mount the bookshelf. I looked at my hands, covered in tiny glue scars and sanding calluses. I didn't feel shame or rage. I felt still. That evening, I packed a suitcase. Just one. Clothes, a few sketchbooks, the blue mug Deborah made at pottery class that she forgot to take home. I left her a note. Nothing dramatic. Just, "I can't be part of this performance anymore. I'm sorry it came to this. I hope you find what you're looking for." As I closed the door behind me, I whispered to no one. "I choose me." I moved into a small apartment above a bike shop. One bedroom, tiny kitchen, peeling paint. But the windows open wide and the floor creaks in a way that makes it feel honest. I didn't tell Deborah right away, but she noticed. She texted, "Are you okay? You've gone quiet." I replied, "I left." She didn't ask what I meant. She just sent a single word. "Where?" 2 hours later, she showed up at my doorstep with homemade lasagna in a Tupperware container and a bag of oranges. In case you're not eating right, she said. We didn't hug. We didn't touch. We just stood there in my empty kitchen, surrounded by cardboard boxes and mismatched furniture, and she smiled like she was proud of me. For days after that, she kept checking in. Want to grab coffee? Did you eat today? Found this thrift store with mid-century chairs. Want to go see? She never stayed too long. Never crossed a line. Just little visits that made the new place feel less like exile. Then came her moment of reckoning. I was sketching in the kitchen when my phone buzzed. A picture. No context. Tom.Go. Kissing someone in a sparkly black dress at a bar. It wasn't grainy. It wasn't ambiguous. His hand was on the woman's waist, his wedding ring visible in the frame. 2 minutes later, Deborah texted, "It's from an anonymous number. I think it's real." I called her. She didn't answer. 10 minutes later, she showed up at my door. Her eyes were red but dry. She handed me the phone without speaking. I looked at the photo again. My stomach turned, not from shock, but from the confirmation. "I stayed because I was scared to start over," she said quietly, taking a seat on my second-hand sofa. I sat beside her. "Me too." There was a long pause. Then I said it. Carefully. "Maybe we don't have to be scared together." She looked at me, not the way someone looks at a lifeline, but like someone seeing a doorway they hadn't noticed before. "This one's a little different. Not just an update. It's the first time in a long while that I'm writing from a place of peace, not just survival. Life's still messy, complicated, but something's shifted. Anyway, here's what's happened since my last post. After Laura's lawyer sent the divorce paperwork, complete with bolded emotional abandonment claims, I felt weirdly okay. Not angry, not relieved, just a quiet sort of clarity. Like standing outside after a storm and realizing the roof held. I didn't fight her version of the story. She could tell the world whatever she needed to. I knew the truth. So did Deborah. And at that point, that was enough. Deborah started stopping by more often. Not in the clutching a wine bottle crying on the doorstep way, but in the gentle, thoughtful ways she always had. One night, she brought over her mom's lasagna recipe, the one with the weird dash of cinnamon. "Don't knock it till you've tried it," and stayed to help unpack my kitchen. "You really brought all your spices," she teased, holding up an unlabeled glass jar. "Those are investments, not spices," I said. "Smell that. That's smoked paprika. Imported." She grinned, shook her head, and called me a kitchen snob. We ended up burning half the garlic bread, while arguing over whether Friends or Frasier aged better. For the record, I stand by Frasier. I won't apologize. She never officially moved in, but it started happening in little pieces. Her favorite hoodie found its way onto my coat hook. A mismatched mug from her classroom, world's okayest teacher, ended up next to mine in the cabinet. She started keeping extra contact lenses in the bathroom drawer. One night, she fell asleep on my couch after we rewatched You've Got Mail for the 5th time. I covered her with a blanket and watched her breathe for a while. It hit me then. This wasn't some grand romance or some dramatic rescue mission. This was comfort. Real, sturdy, imperfect comfort. And I didn't have to earn it by bleeding myself dry. Then came the photo. It was a random Tuesday. I was organizing my files, finally tackling the mountain of junk I brought from the old house. Buried in a folder labeled Bills, MISC, I found an old email printout. Attached to it was a screenshot. A conversation between Laura and someone labeled M.E.M. I knew who A was. Mark.It. I'd heard the name before, casually dropped into conversations like, "Oh, Mark and I are just brainstorming this campaign," or "Mark says I should pitch it bolder." I never thought twice. But there it was. The message. "Laura, make him think it's his idea to leave." Mark, hell-fold. He always does. My hands went cold. Not because I was hurt, more like I was seeing the final puzzle piece fall into place. It had never been about saving our marriage. She'd been orchestrating my exit all along. I was just the last to catch on. I showed the screenshot to Deborah later that night. She didn't gasp or dramatize it. She just looked at me with something soft in her expression and said, "That must feel awful." I nodded. Strangely, it doesn't. Not anymore. I folded the paper, tossed it into our little fire pit on the balcony, and watched it curl into ash. She taught me what not to do, I said. We've started building our own version of US. It's nothing glamorous, but it's ours. We painted the apartment together, sunflower yellow in the living room, soft blue in the bedroom. Deborah had a meltdown halfway through because the yellow looked like cheese and we had to repaint twice. We laughed about it every time we walked in after that. We adopted a dog, an anxious little terrier mix named Murphy who chews on the mail and hides under the bed during thunderstorms. He's a nervous wreck, but he adores Deborah and follows me around like I'm made of bacon. We go on Sunday hikes. Not epic Instagram trails, just nearby woods with crumbling stone walls and overgrown trails. She carries a thermos of tea. I carry snacks. Sometimes we walk in silence for whole stretches. And it's the best part of my week. We host game nights with our friends. Josh brings homemade guac. Deborah always loses at Scrabble but insists she's playing for the vibe. Sometimes in the quiet after everyone leaves, we'll sit on the couch and just exist. Her legs draped over mine. Murphy curled between us. No pretending. No tiptoeing. Just two people who have seen the worst of marriage and decided not to let it define what love could be. Last night, Tom texted her. First time in weeks. He said he was sorry. That he missed her. That things weren't the same without her. She stared at the message for a long time. Then looked at me. I don't need to reply, right? I smiled. You could. But do you want to? She shook her head. No, I'm happy, and that's enough. She blocked the number. Final update. Probably. Feels surreal typing that. I started writing these posts because I felt like I was coming apart at the seams, living in a house that didn't feel like mine, married to someone who made me feel smaller every day, tiptoeing around guilt, silence, and obligation. Now, I'm sitting on a rooftop with a blanket around my shoulders, sipping lukewarm tea beside the woman I didn't realize I'd been waiting my whole life to meet. And no, it's not a fairy tale. It's better than that. It's real. It's been 6 months. Half a year of tiny, quiet changes. Deborah and I found a new place. A sunlit loft with creaky hardwood floors, drafty windows, and just enough space for our mismatched furniture and Murphy's chew toys. The walls are painted sunflower yellow, again, and this time we both agreed it actually works. We took our time moving in. No pressure, no big speeches. One day she left her slippers by the bed. The next, her books showed up on the nightstand. By the time her worn-out grade 4 spelling bee champion mug made its way to the kitchen shelf, we both kind of knew. She officially changed her mailing address last month. We've been making a life, one imperfect step at a time. Some of the best moments haven't been big at all. Like the time we tried to make lemon risotto and ended up with something resembling sour oatmeal. We still ate it. Or when we got stuck on a broken escalator for 20 minutes and played 20 questions until a security guy rescued us. We've argued too. Over real things. She thinks I leave too many tabs open on my laptop. I think she plays her rain sounds too loud at night. We disagree on whether pineapple belongs on pizza. I won't even tell you which side she's on. She doesn't need that kind of internet heat. But the difference is, we listen. We pause. We fix, not just fight. A few weeks ago, Deborah found something in one of the unopened boxes I'd buried under stuff I'll deal with later. It was a printout of texts. From Laura. To Mark. Dot. I'd saved them in case the divorce got messy. I guess I forgot they were even there. She handed them to me quietly. One message in particular stuck out again. Laura. Make him think it's his idea to leave. I looked up, bracing myself. But Deborah didn't look angry. Or shocked. Just thoughtful. She said, "You know what I like about you?" What? You didn't become bitter. After all that, you still believe in second chances. No. KRZ. I didn't say anything for a second. Then I told her the truth. I don't know if I believed in second chances. I just believed in you. Last week, Tom reached out again. This time it was through her mom. Classic move. Said he wanted to meet for closure. That he was in therapy. That he realized how much he'd hurt her. Deborah and I talked about it. Really, talked. And then she made her choice. She called her mom, said thanks but no thanks, and asked her not to pass along any more messages. Then she turned to me and said, I don't need closure from someone who never truly opened up in the first place. She meant it. Every word. And I couldn't have loved her more than I did in that moment. Tonight, we climbed onto the rooftop of our building. Blankets, snacks, Bluetooth speaker playing our New Beginnings playlist, now 7 hours long and filled with everything from Ella Fitzgerald to 90s alt-rock. We lit a small fire in a tin can burner and tossed in one last souvenir, a book. Laura's old copy of the Marriage Manifesto, a gift she once gave me with a note that said, you could learn something from this. Deborah held it up and asked, are we ready? I nodded. She dropped it in. We laughed as the cover curled and blackened, not because of spite, but because it felt like shedding an old itchy skin. Deborah just handed me a new mug. White, with big red letters that say, World's Okayest Partner. I guess that's me now, and I have never been prouder.